This video will be a look at how four NFL offenses utilize the fullback to accomplish various tasks and try to have those guys be multiple. We'll be focusing the film generally on the 49ers, Ravens, Lions, and Dolphins. A couple of plays sprinkled in here from the Rams, to be honest with you. This will be my attempt to illustrate the various ways that fullbacks are used in the NFL that are classic, that are in line with historical usage of fullbacks, and then show some of how some of those responsibilities can be fulfilled by other positional players in the NFL, be it a tight end or a wide receiver. Hopefully, I'll be able to lead into my summary point, which is that I find more similarities than differences in a lot of the concepts that are used in the NFL, whether a team is using 21 personnel, 11 personnel, or 12 personnel, with that second tight end being utilized as a hybrid fullback, H-back tight end. This will be my attempt to show film from the Ravens, Lions, Niners, and Dolphins that I think highlights more similarities than differences. And some teams are often choosing for salary purposes, and because the NFL rosters are small, in my opinion, at least in terms of the active roster on game days, they're choosing to use a tight end and cross-train that tight end as a fullback in some of those 12 personnel packages. Some teams go the other route, the four that I mentioned before. They have a fullback, and then they will have him serve as a tight end occasionally so that their version of 21 personnel can become 12 personnel in effect. We'll let the film get started here. There won't be any spot shadows. Hopefully, I'll be able to stop sometimes and show you, but you're just looking for the fullback, in this case for the Lions, the guy who went into motion. Most of this group of plays here first would be what I would call lead plays. Some people call them ISO. There will be some kick concepts in here. Regardless of what terminology you use, what does it mean when you say lead? It means the fullback leads the way. The fullback goes in the direction of the point of attack. You got the Lions on the first one running a lead zone play, the Ravens with the power play on the second one I showed you, then the reverse power by Jason Kabinda here, and then I think now you got another reverse power where he's stepping off the midline. I did a full film study of that one. If you're interested, I'll try to link it up. Basically, it's F counter, which I would say is conceptually very similar to the play that you're going to see here. The 49ers running against the Cowboys in the 2021 playoffs. Fullback is wrapping up to lead up on the second level, normally a linebacker, while the lineman, the pulling guard, is the kick-out block. So some people call it reverse power if the fullback is set in the backfield, and then some people call it F counter if he's on the opposite side of the midline. And you got a counter option look here by the Ravens. Most of these plays are either downhill, off tackle, just your classic usage of a fullback in the run game, mind you, with some variations on pre-snap alignment where the fullback lines up. That's what I mean by that. And then some variations or alterations in the assignments that are exchanged. So, like, for example, normally on a power play, you'd get the fullback with a nice J angle kicking out the D end, trying to get some expansion on that D end, not let that D end or outside linebacker, in this case, Jihad Ward, collapse down. So as you get the kick out block or attempt to get kick out block by the fullback, you've got the backside guard wrapping and normally wrapping up to a linebacker at the second level. Well, the Lions just reverse or switch those two duties here, those two tasks. The fullback steps opposite so the guard can pull and kick out Jihad Ward, and then the fullback Kabinda can lead up on the second level. Same concept as an F counter, if you ask me, just has the fullback lined up in the backfield as opposed to a single back offense like you'll see here in a moment again with the 49ers. A single back offense where now the fullback is lined up as, a hybrid tight end. I would say this is 21 personnel in terms of positional designation, but it's a 12 personnel formation. You have two guys lined up as tight ends here, the actual tight end, George Kittles, and then the fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, however you say it. There's going to be another set of plays that'll show, I guess, a slightly more unique or offbeat manner of utilizing the fullback. Fullback for the 49ers is here. Tight end is up top. So again, 21 personnel, but a 12 personnel formation because that tight end, that fullback is versatile enough to be asked to use to be asked to complete techniques that a tight end would normally do. In this case, it's basically they're doing the same thing. They're both cutting the edge defenders for the Rams. So it's like a double split zone concept. We'll run it one more time so you can see it. You will get a classic play action pass to the fullback that you'll see here in a moment. But so what's the overall point? There's multiple guys positionally who can do what's being accomplished here. This is a crack block by Juszczyk, who's lined up as a slot receiver. So he's going to go pin down the inside linebacker while the tight end Kittles is going to go in motion, and then he's going to get out to the corner. Well, how come the 49ers do this? Well, because those guys are versatile enough to line up different places and execute different tasks. That's kind of the point of this video, is that certain fullbacks are versatile enough. They have the physical skills and the traits to go do those things. And certain teams can't find a player who's versatile enough, so they utilize a tight end to do so. This is your classic play action pass to the fullback out in the flats on, I think, a second and short. And the very next play is going to be conceptually similar, but it will look different pre-snap because it's out of the shotgun. Well, what's the difference? It's conceptually, it's the same thing. A fullback threatening a D end, both of these plays, the Lions under center and the Dolphins in the shotgun formation I call jokers. They utilize previous plays, they complement previous plays that have been run, where the fullback has engaged the D end, and now the D end has been conditioned to expect a kickout block or some type of engagement by the fullback. Even though the Dolphins are doing this out of the gun, for me, this is conceptually similar. Identical, if you ask me. Even though one's under center, one's in the shotgun. The Dolphins run this same, very similar concept, I should say, on a 4th and 1 in this game against the 49ers from their own 19-yard line. That's why I included the down and distance scoreboard shot. Same concept as the one I just showed you, except it's out of 22 personnel. So now you've got a 4th and 1, and you got 2 tight ends on the field. One of them lined up to the right. And then I think that's Gesicki lined up to the left as a slot receiver. 30 is going to post-snap go right at the D end again, and then slip outside of him. We would say on top, meaning crossing his face, as opposed to going underneath. Can other positions do this? Can other players do this from a wide receiver position? Sure, you see wide receivers in the backfield. Could a tight end go back in the backfield and do that? Sure. There are certain situations, I would say this is one of them, and on a 4th and 1 where you want the defense to stay in their base front. In this case, a 22 personnel on 4th and 1 elicits a base defense look from the 49ers, actually kind of like a 6-2, 4-4, 6-2 hybrid. And you're able to take advantage of it by slipping the fullback out in flats, putting that D end in conflict. Individually, can other position guys do this? Sure. Could you have lined up George Kittles here and had him crack the inside linebacker? Sure. And that's the point. You could use Kyle Juszczyk to do the same thing, and the 49ers, in fact, have. They have switched the responsibilities before on that same exact outside run play where they leave the corner unblocked and the guy in motion, be it a tight end or a fullback, goes out to get that corner, a real mismatch in the run game. Sure, you could do those things. There's no reason you can't. You can do many things with guys in the NFL that are versatile enough, maybe have been asked to play dual positions in college. Here's an example with the Rams. I think 2021 film, you've got a receiver on the opposite side who's going to wrap up, and he's supposed to go get a linebacker. I think Fred Warner actually kind of gets involved in stepping in that direction, so he ends up going to get, I think, a safety who comes into the box. My apologies, wrong one. I think it's going to be this safety here who comes into the box with the motion. Look at the wrap. It's the same concept as what a lead fullback would do. And the running back's path, initially being to the left, it's a designed wind back, or some people call it a cutback. That's fine too. I call it a wind back when it's by design. The design of the play is teaching or telling the running back to start off in one direction, in this case, start off to our right, his left, and then bring it back to the other side of the field behind this guy who is basically being hidden from the linebacker's view as a potential lead blocker. Call it whatever you want. That's just a lead blocker, conceptually similar, and if you ask me, to the lead ISO plays that I showed you earlier, except it's a wide receiver executing that task. Here you have a wham trap concept where a tight end is going to pinned down on an unblocked D tackle. Additionally, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown going to go get the strong safety, and he does a nice job of it. Running back is able to run right through that seam, through that crease, for like an 8-yard gain. Another example, Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't really get a great block here, but I would say this is similar to F counter, except they're not pulling a guard to do so, they being the Lions. They're kicking out with the guy in motion, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to wrap. For me, I would say this is conceptually similar to what the 49ers ran. There's your kick out block. What the 49ers ran on the third play, I believe, that I showed you. Maybe it's the fourth play. I called it F counter. Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown's not an F. He's not a hybrid fullback / tight end. The techniques and assignments that fullbacks do are not going anywhere. And that's why it kind of annoys me to hear people say it's a position that's not needed. Or at least it's very difficult to hear. Some teams use a fullback and 21 personnel to execute these tasks. Some teams, as you see from the 3 plays that I'm showing you, I probably should have shown more in this segment here, will utilize a wide receiver or a tight end to do it. Again, this kick-out block, I would say, is conceptually similar to the kick-out block that the 49ers right guard executed on that F counter play against the Cowboys in the 2021 playoff game. And then this would be Kyle Juszczyk, or Juszczyk, however you say it, pulling and wrapping underneath of the kick-out block to lead the way for the tailback. You may say that who cares about a positional designation? And that's where I am. There's film of teams executing these concepts with a fullback, and some teams do it without. I can't blame them because, like I said, the shortened roster in the NFL, for me, with the salary cap and with how much teams are paying now for quarterbacks, they're expending so much money. The fullback position, I think, is more so related to how much the quarterbacks are getting paid now. And another element that I'll bring up in a moment, the teams that can use a fullback with a talented tight end who's multiple, to me, are the ones that are more multiple and balanced. So I'm talking about like the 49ers, really, with Kittles and Juszczyk. The Lions had TJ Hawkinson, and then they have Brock Wright, who's super talented as well, in case you don't know who he is, and then they drafted Sam Laporta. The Ravens, less so with Mark Andrews, but if you think back to the 2019 offense that the Ravens had, they had 3 tight ends, 2 of which really were serving as fullbacks, in that offense. The Dolphins have Mike Gesicki, who's not really necessarily used as a lead blocker, in my opinion, but his hybrid nature is that he can line up at receiver and tight end, as you saw on that 4th and 1 against the 49ers from the regular season last year. Some offensive coordinators are going to spend a significant amount of time, like the Rams, in 11 personnel. Among other teams, you got the Bills and Bengals. They're in 11 personnel a ton as well. Now, can you extrapolate anything from those offenses, the ones that spend the most time in 11 personnel? No, I don't think you can, because guess who else spent a ton of time in 11 personnel the last couple of years? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have 4 different teams with 4, I would say somewhat vastly different, I should say, offensive philosophies. Is it really difficult to run the ball out of 11 personnel consistently? Well, if you look at the Bills offense and the Bengals the last 2 years, you could say, well, they've been very inconsistent running the ball. Why is that? Other teams are able to get it accomplished. Look at the Eagles. I believe last year in 2022, the Eagles were in 11 personnel over 70% of the time on first down, on 1st and 10. To me, it really depends on the fullback tight end pairing being multiple, being versatile, but also an athletic quarterback who can expand the run game with some read option concepts, or whatever else you want to do. I'm veering off task a little bit, but I think this is related. I think the relationship goes like this: the more athletic your quarterback is, and the more willing your offensive coordinator is to use him as a run threat, the less you need a positional fullback. Now, certain teams go against the grain in terms of that analogy that I just made. The Rams would be one. They spent a lot of time in 11 personnel, but they utilized play action a lot. So they did present a run threat with the quarterback booting out off of that run action. Was Matt Stafford or Jared Goff when they went to the Super Bowl with him? Was either one of them a huge run threat? Well, no, but you do have to account for the bootleg. It is a foundational element of what they do. So I would say even though they don't have an athletic quarterback, so my assertion there seems to be disproven by the Rams. I think it's actually proven because the Rams are committed to using the quarterback as a threat off the boot, which holds at least one defender. You still need someone to execute these techniques, threatening the D end, and then either kicking him out, crossing his face, cutting him in some instances. Whether it's a fullback, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a really badass wide receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who does those things, for Jared Goff and the Lions 4, 5, 6 times a game. I went and found, I think, 26 or 27 fullbacks that were active consistently last year, and I mean on a week by week basis. And I may have counted wrong there. Maybe there's 10 more. I don't know. The NFL for me is somewhat of a bad barometer because of how small the active rosters are, in my opinion, compared to college teams. College teams, especially when the teams that are playing at home, are going to have a whole lot more people dressed and hence considered active. To me, it doesn't matter what position a player is in terms of determining value. I'm not talking about salary structure. I'm talking about value to the offense in assisting them in getting things done, moving the ball down the field efficiently and scoring more points. If you look at points scored, the teams that we're talking about today, the Lions, 49ers, Dolphins, and Rams. Just if we were to just talk about 2022, well, the Lions, 27 points per game. They did have a lot of 11 and 12 personnel, don't get me wrong. But in those two groupings, you have someone, be it a tight end or receiver, fulfilling the same role as a fullback on certain concepts, certain run concepts. 49ers, 26 points per game last year, utilizing 3 different quarterbacks, obviously. And I know that they run a lot of 21 personnel with Juszczyk on the field. Dolphins, 24 points per game last year, which I think was 11th in the NFL, but I seem to remember they were significantly higher, tops 5, 6, 7 in the NFL early in the season when they had some huge outbursts. The Ravens are the outlier for 2022 in points per game. They only had 20 points per game, still 19th. Keep in mind, 2019, their historic year, they used a lot of hybrid, versatile fullback tight ends to score 33 points per game and lead the NFL with the same offensive coordinator. What's my overall point? I don't think that fullbacks as a position lack value. What they're asked to do is the same thing that other positions are being asked to do. The salary structure in the NFL, I think, is having an impact on how many fullbacks are on rosters. Number one. Number two, how athletic your quarterback is and how willing your offensive coordinator is to use that quarterback in the run game is also having an influence on whether or not fullbacks are around. If you look at some of the college offenses that don't use fullbacks at all, it's the teams that are willing to run with their quarterback out of 11 personnel, zone read, pistol option, whatever it may be. You guys let me know what you think of me looking at certain positions in the NFL, talking about what they do historically or under classic offensive use with the lead plays and some of the counter plays that I showed you. I didn't really show them being used in pass pro at all. I did have some of that loaded up, but I didn't choose to show it. You guys let me know what you think of looking at position groups in the NFL, how they're used, what they're asked to do. I'd like to do this with tight ends next, but it'll be a little bit more of an undertaking because I'm going to attempt to show tight ends being used as fullbacks a little bit more than I did in this video. Specifically, George Kittle's and some of the other guys that are asked to execute kick-out blocks on a consistent basis in a quote run-first offense like the 49ers or maybe even the Dolphins. Appreciate you guys' time. If you checked out the video and listened this long and you think other people might enjoy this content, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.